Hey, welcome back, rock fans. This is Josh from the Josh and Friends podcast, and I'm here to bring you another edition of the Seattle Rock Tour. In this video, we'll be traveling to a number of different venues, including some historic bars and restaurants, famous childhood homes, music video locations, and some local parks that have a unique connection to the history of Washington State. And just like my last video, pretty much all of these locations are absolutely free to visit. All right, so the first spot on our list is in the Capitol Hill area of Seattle at Nuemos. The bar originally opened as Moe's Mo Rockin' Cafe in 1992, and they relaunched the establishment in 2003 under its current name, pronounced New Mo's. This spot has played host to many different bands over the years, including No Doubt, Radiohead, Muse, Adele, MGMT, and the Presidents of the United States of America, who often referred to this spot as their home base. In 1995, Neil Young and Pearl Jam performed a concert at Nuemos, where they debuted their Mirror Ball collaboration project with a performance here. A number of other bands also used the venue as their launching pad, including acts like Bush, Oasis, the Goo Goo Dolls, and Garbage. All right, directly across the street from Nuemos, you can find the Comet Tavern. And this place has been described as a grunge institution, a smoky dive, and a rocker's hangout. The building itself was constructed around 1910 with apartment units above and a network of tunnels below that were used for smuggling liquor during the Prohibition. It was actually an Irish tavern called the Wee Dock and Doris until the mid-50s, before it was eventually renamed the Comet Tavern. The bar was a hippie den in the 70s, and later became a popular hangout for rockers in the 80s and 90s. Notable artists include Jason Finn of the Presidents of the United States of America, who actually worked at the Comet, and Kim Thale of Soundgarden, who used to frequent the establishment back in the day. Tragically, this is also the last place that Mia Zapata, the lead singer of the Gets, was last seen the night she was murdered after walking home from the bar. Okay, so moving on a couple blocks away, you'll find Linda's Tavern. And this spot is often referred to as the Grunge Cheers. Now, this iconic bar is probably best known for being the location where Kurt Cobain was last seen in public before his death on April 5th in 1994. The bar had only been open just a couple of months before this, and it's been said that Cobain possibly ate there the night that he passed. And if you're interested, you could sit in the same booth that he dined in that evening. All right, so the next location brings us to the U District area of Seattle, over to the Blue Moon Tavern. And this bar opened up way back in 1934, just months after the repeal of Prohibition. And it was a popular hangout for many professors, artists, poets, and painters back in the day. In 1991, Nirvana was doing an in-store signing for their new album Nevermind at the now-closed Beehive Records, where they expected about 50 people to show up. Kurt had decided that rather than just signing the albums and shaking hands, Nirvana would play. But when they saw the line at the store that afternoon, they realized over 200 people had flooded the store. So the band retreated to the Blue Moon Tavern to hide out and began drinking. But when they looked out the window and saw dozens of fans peering in, they felt like they were the Beatles in A Hard Day's Night. When they finally returned to the Beehive, it was so crowded that kids were standing on racks of albums and sawhorses had to be lined up in front of the store's glass windows just to protect the band. Now, the Blue Moon is probably best known now for being the last hangout spot for Lane Staley in 2002. And this was right before he was later found deceased at his condo just down the road. Our next location takes us to Ray's Boathouse. And this building originally opened as a coffee house by founder Ray Lichtenberger in 1945. But in June of '73, the building was transformed into a full-service fresh seafood restaurant. And this is where Chris Cornell started working as a dishwasher back in the early '80s. Now, Cornell has stated that he was cleaning up fish guts with his hands for a living while playing music on the side. The crew at the restaurant would often blast the local rock station, KISW, in the kitchen while working in the dish pit. And coworkers recall Chris impersonating rock stars like Billy Idol while hosing off floor mats down by the dock. In 1997, Cornell returned to Ray's Boathouse to attend the retirement party for his former boss, head chef, and friend, Wayne Levinson. All right, our next location takes us to the Fremont neighborhood of Seattle. And this one could be a little tough to find if you don't know what you're looking for. The sign on the outside says Professional Engravers, but it's actually Studio Litho, which is the recording studio owned by Pearl Jam's Stone Gossard. Now, albums that have been recorded at this location include selections from Soundgarden, Presidents of the United States of America, Deftones, Mudhoney, Stained, parts of the first Audioslave album, Mastodon, Queensryche, several albums by the Dave Matthews Band, and of course, a number of Pearl Jam albums and side projects from members in the band. But unlike London Bridge Studios and Shoreline, this one is not open for public tours. Another popular landmark in Seattle just a few blocks away is the Fremont Troll, which is a sculpture that was erected in 1990 by 4 local artists. Now, the troll stands 18 feet tall, weighs 13,000 pounds, and is a combination of rebar steel, wire, and concrete. Now, fun fact about the statue is that the troll is actually clutching a real V-dub bug. Now, the Fremont Troll has been featured in several movies over the years, including 10 Things I Hate About You, The Twilight Saga, Sleepless in Seattle, and Death Note. In 2016, the Chicago rock band Manjagas released a song called The Fremont Troll, which was featured on their album Seattle Rock. Now, hundreds of tourists visit this spot each day, so if you're looking to get some good pics, come early or on a rainy day like we did. All right, so the next location on our tour takes us to the most photographed spot in all of Seattle, and this is at Kerry Park, which is located on the south slope of Queen Anne Hill. And this location captures some of the most iconic views of the city skyline, with the Space Needle prominently featured in the center, Elliott Bay to the west, and Mount Rainier glowing in the background. Now, this is also the spot where Frasier's apartment overlooked in the NBC TV series, as well as the opening scene from the 1999 movie, 10 Things I Hate About You. But at the center of Kerry Park is a sculpture, which is known as Changing Form. And this is the spot where Andrew Wood of Mother Love Bone posed for his famous arms wide open shot. So of course I had to have one of us do the same shot as well, just for fun. All right, so heading back down the hill, our next location on the list is just down the street to the Mecca Cafe. This spot is located just to the left of Dick's Hamburgers, and once you walk in, if you stay to the left, it'll take you all the way down past the bar into the back booths. And word has it, this is where Andrew Wood and his girlfriend Xana used to hold court. Now, I took my beer down to this spot where I was able to pay my respects, and from the looks of it, I'm guessing it looks nearly identical to what it did back in the day. Didn't see much of any remodeling has been done over the last 35 years. Okay, so the next spot is right around the corner to another famous location, which is the 5 Point Cafe. The bar opened up in 1929 and is the oldest drinking establishment in the neighborhood of Belltown. Now, this place is certainly not the classiest bar on the list, but it is a very famous institution in Seattle, with an all-night diner and bar, which was once a hangout for artists like Chris Cornell, Eddie Vedder, and many other rockers back in the day. This is also one of the very few bars in downtown Seattle where you can get some crazy drink specials, like the 5 Point Special, which is a shot of whiskey and a can of beer for $6. Available Sundays through Thursdays, 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. All right, so heading down towards the water, we hit our next spot, which is at Pier 70 on Elliott Bay. And this was the location setting for The Real World Seattle that aired on MTV in 1998. The pier was originally built in 1902 and is one of the largest docks on the Seattle waterfront. The original house for Season 7 has since been remodeled, with its brick surface being replaced with conventional siding, and it only somewhat resembles the pier during filming, which is now used for retail and office space, and is home to the steakhouse Aqua by El Gaucho. But you can still walk all the way back down in the back like we did, and take in the beautiful scenery. Now, the show originally aired on MTV back in June of 1998, and ran for a total of 20 episodes. It's often regarded as one of the most popular seasons in the show's run, and much of that is due to the unique location and the time frame, as well as the musical culture of the city and the wild cast members who appeared on the show. The cast of Season 7 worked as modulators at 107.7 The End, which was a popular rock station in Seattle back in the 90s, and they eventually worked their way onto the air, hosting a program towards the end of the show. Now, filming of the show ran into some difficulties with some of the patrons in the city who were not particularly fans of the show. And they would often shout obscenities and wear shirts that read, "The Real World Sucks," which had to be blurred out when it aired on MTV. Now, one of the most famous scenes in the history of Real World also came from Season 7, which was in episode 15 entitled Irene Calls It Quits. And this featured the famous slap heard round the world when Steven slaps Irene. Okay, so our next location on the list is kind of hard to find just because it's not on the main road. It's called Black Dog Forge. And the location sits on a narrow alleyway between 2nd and 3rd Avenue off Battery Street in the Belltown district. Located behind the Voo Lounge, you'll see a gray door surrounded by a painted black wall. And above the door, there's an eerie painting of an arm holding an oil lamp. And to the left of the door, you'll see Black Dog Forge, outlined in red. In the early 1990s, the basement of the former blacksmith shop served as a practice space for bands like Soundgarden and the up-and-coming Pearl Jam. Now, unfortunately, it's not open to the public, so I wouldn't try going in unless you know somebody there. But the alley itself was known as a punker hangout back in the day, and word has it that Eddie Vedder was standing in the same very alley when he wrote the song Oceans. All right, so right down the street from this location on 1st Avenue is our next spot at the Federal Army and Navy Surplus Store. And this is where a lot of the old grunge rockers from back in the day would get their clothes. And it was also a favorite spot for Chris Cornell, where he used to go in and purchase his boots. Now, like many locations in the area, they now cater to fans of the grunge era by selling rock t-shirts, other Seattle merchandise, and of course, you guessed it, boots. So the next spot on our list is just down the road over to the OK Hotel. And this is the location where Nirvana first played Smells Like Teen Spirit live in concert. Now, the cool thing about this fact is the song was played 5 months prior to the release of the album. And you could actually see this concert performance on YouTube. And it's fun to see Kurt and the band do this song long before it came out. Pretty cool. All right, so heading southbound out of the downtown area, the next spot on our list is to the Northwest African American Museum. And it's at this spot where you could find the filming location for the music video for Thrift Shop, where Ryan Lewis rolls up in a DeLorean and Macklemore rides his scooter through the parking lot. Now, if you walk over to the right side of the park in the grassy area, this is where you'll find the Jimi Hendrix Park, which was completed in the fall of 2016 and features a grand entrance and stairway adorned with Jimmy's signature, as well as a chronological timeline of Jimmy's life and career, with song lyrics etched in the sidewalk, a shadow wave wall bearing Jimmy's image, and a view of the Seattle city skyline from the center. Okay, so our next location takes us to the Georgetown district of Seattle at the original Rainier Brewery. Now, it's not the old Rainier Brewery with the big R on it that can be seen from I-5. This is in the Georgetown area, about 2 miles down the road from that one. And if you walk to the middle of the front entrance and look over to the left, you'll see where they shot the opening scene to Thrift Shop by Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. And this is where everyone is riding towards the screen in slow motion. Okay, so the next few spots are only if you want to get really crazy with your road trip. This first location outside of Seattle takes us about an hour south to the state's capital of Olympia, Washington. And this is where you can find Kurt Cobain's old apartment. Cobain lived at this location between the years of 1989 and 1991. And according to sources, about 75% of Kurt's total musical output was written while living here. And that includes Nirvana's first big hit, Smells Like Teen Spirit, which was a phrase written in graffiti on the wall of the apartment by Bikini Kill singer Kathleen Hanna. Now, Hanna meant that Cobain smelled like the deodorant Teen Spirit, which she had discovered during a trip to the grocery store. But Cobain said that he wasn't even aware of the deodorant until months after the single was released, and he just thought of it as a revolutionary slogan as they had been discussing anarchism and punk rock. Now, the old rental house does have Kurt Cobain tributes outside, which makes it easy to spot, and it's also located on Google Maps if you want to just type that in. All right, so moving along on the old Kurt tour, we find ourselves about another hour away to Aberdeen, Washington. And the first one we stopped at was the Kurt Cobain Memorial Park, or Kurt Cobain Landing. And this tribute park first opened up in 2011 and is the place where Kurt used to walk from his house just a couple of blocks away. As a kid, he used to sit under the Yonge Street Bridge, which sits along the banks of the murky Wishkah River. The park features many different displays, including a headstone with several Cobain quotes, a large guitar statue that celebrates Cobain's life and the legacy of Nirvana, a collage of Nirvana-related graffiti under the bridge itself, and a Kurt Cobain air guitar sculpture, which we had to check out for ourselves. And it sounded pretty good. Now, sitting under the bridge was kind of like transporting back in time, with the views of the river slowly flowing by, the slippery, muddy banks below, and you could almost hear Kurt visualizing the lyrics to Something in the Way in his head.
Underneath the bridge, top has sprung a leak, and the animals I've trapped. Something in the way.
Now, following his death in 1994, family and friends gathered here to spread a third of Kurt's ashes into the Wishkah, where they say his spirit flows with the tide twice daily. 2 years after Kurt's death, Nirvana released the live album From the Muddy Banks of the Wishkah, and today, thousands of fans flock here from around the world to pay their respects and honor his memory. Okay, so just a couple of minutes down the road is where you can find Kurt Cobain's childhood home. And this is where Kurt lived between 1968, when he was just a 1-year-old, to 1984, which is longer than any other residence during his lifetime. The 4-bedroom home was purchased from the Cobain family in 2018 for just $225,000 and was later added to the Washington State Heritage Register in 2021, which means it's now classified as a historically significant property. In 2014, the Mad Traveler on YouTube actually toured the inside of the home and was able to capture video of many of the rooms inside, as well as the vintage decor. He also got a shot of Cobain's old bedroom upstairs that included some of Kurt's old writings, as well as the view he had from outside of his bedroom. All right, so the last location on the tour brings us to downtown Aberdeen. And And this is where you'll find the Kurt Cobain Grunge Mural. And in 2013, a team of 5 artists led by Eric Sandgren constructed the 68-foot mural, who put in about 650 hours painting the massive project. The mural pays homage to Cobain, Nirvana, and a number of other bands who influenced the grunge era. Nirvana bassist Chris Novoselic was consulted for ideas and recommendations while it was being designed. All right, so that concludes my list of rock locations to visit in the Seattle and Washington area. Is there a particular location that you feel should have been included? Which of the spots on this video would you like to see the most? Let me know in the comments. And I'm gonna leave each address in the description below so you can lay out your own musical journey. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more fun content in the future. And as always, thanks for watching and keep on rocking.